Hey everyone, and welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast, episode 13. Today's episode is with my friend JJ Obee. JJ is an incredible actor, artist, designer. Honestly, when I think of JJ Obee, I just think art. JJ Obee is art, and she's really kind, really funny, just an amazing human being that I connected with here in the Los Angeles acting community, and I'm really looking forward to sharing this conversation we had together. And our book of the episode is actually one JJ and I have both read and talk about at the end of this episode. It is called The Overstory, a novel by Richard Powers. This is an incredible book. Honestly, I don't know if I've read a book that has this vivid of writing and character development. I won't give away the book, but it's literally like, as JJ mentioned on the podcast, it's like a Pulp Fiction movie. Reading it. So it's called The Overstory. It's a novel by Richard Powers, and it actually won the Pulitzer Prize. So definitely worth picking up. So with that being said, here is my conversation with JJ. JJ Obee, welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast.
Hello.
And now I'm thinking about lamb chop, as we were talking about that in the pre-meeting room just now.
Lamb chop.
Well, then there's this song that never ends.
Yeah, was that part of? Because did Lamb Chop sing the song that never ends, or was that Skidamarink Dinky Dink with like the elephants and stuff, or was there overlap there?
Skidamarink Rinky Doo, Skidamarink Doo, I love you. I think that's a completely different genre outside of Lamb Chop.
But it was a TV show, and I feel like they were on like the same lineup at the same like. Back to back, maybe.
That wasn't Raffi in the Woods, the guy with the guitar.
No, he was also. God, you just wonder how many drugs people did when they were writing all the children's shows for like the 80s and 90s.
Right? I'm no joke. I am not kidding you. So Eric and I this past year, I got to watch lots of shows, as you know. We watched the first episode of Sesame Street from like 1970. I'm not joking. Genius. And I'll add with that, they had to have been on something. Because it was the most psychedelic, trippy thing I had ever seen. And I was sober as a bird watching it. And that's what we were fed as our youth. So
that's why millennials are so neat.
Are we millennials? Is that what we're considering?
Yes, I think I'm right on the edge of millennial and elder millennial, but I feel like I relate more with the elder millennials because I had an older sister, and so I kind of like jumped onto her ness or whatever, her vibe earlier on in life.
I believe we're the same age, and I thought I was Generation X for a long time. And then someone's like, "No, you're a millennial," and I said, "No way." I was criticizing.
Yeah, I think the elder millennials.
Yes, I will go with elder/senior millennial. That's
the very real difference because it has to do with like when internet was inserted into your life. Because if you had some of your formative years without it, then that's more like the elder millennial, from what I understood, versus like if you kind of always had it. Or you had it from a pretty young-ish age. I don't know. I think that's where that line kind of is.
And what is today? I don't even know what comes after millennial. I mean, what is it then?
Then it's Gen Z.
Gen Z.
Yeah, I really like Gen Z. I feel like this might be
Jay-Z.
Like Jay-Z and Gen Z doing a matchup. I feel like people always love to like poop on the generation below them.
I know, yeah.
But I'm really pretty thrilled with a lot of what Gen Z is doing, and I think so much of it comes from them having more data points to see things and be like, shit's fucked up, man.
More points of reference, more perspectives probably.
Yeah.
That's maybe where social media obviously is a gift and a curse. It can be terrible, but it can also be beautiful at the same time.
Yeah.
In terms of connecting you and exposing you to bunches of different things. I never thought, wow. I'm going to have to marinate on that later here. Well, I'm really thrilled to have you on because this has been a year in the making. This turtleneck, this purple turtleneck, I bought specifically last fall when we were going to do this and talked about it. And then I got hurt. And then, it wasn't happening. But we're here now. And I just want to say you've been an amazing support throughout this whole year. This is actually your horse drawing behind me. That's at my spiritual death station here. Nice. So when I think of JJ Obee, I mean, it's almost like a Salvador Dali. What would Salvador Dali say? He's like, I am drugs. Like JJ Obee is art. Like that's how, like even your background. Why should I have been surprised? Why would I even be surprised at that? Because that's not a green screen, right? That's like something else.
This is my bedroom wall, because when I moved in to this house, it was a family's house beforehand. And we were walking they decided to rent it once they got a different house. And it was lime green, just so lime green. And like even the ceilings were lime green. And so I was just like, is it okay if I paint it? And she was like, if it's a nice color. So like, I guess when I move out eventually, I'll just have to paint over this. But I've been thinking about doing a new mural somewhat soon, because after like a couple years of just being in your room for 2 years, I'm ready to look at something else, even though I still kind of love my lily pads, but And
you hand painted those?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like your whole, I mean, we don't have to do a tour, but it's like, is that just one wall or is the whole entire?
Like, I don't know if you can see, there's like, it's a whole big wall.
Whoa.
It goes all up there too.
Whoa.
My self-tape set up, and it's kind of, you can see all my crap all over. Woo.
Oh, well, so obviously art runs in your blood, and having talks with you. And before we get into, I mean, we met in LA at Playhouse West through the acting community, which was awesome. But sounds like you've been doing art for quite a long time, even before Los Angeles. So for me, our audience, and even my own education, could you take me on your journey, artistic journey, rather?
My art journey. I won my first coloring contest in kindergarten.
That's nice.
It was so dumb. Like the local McDonald's had everyone color a pumpkin, and then they like picked the best from each class or whatever. And I just made my pumpkin have 3D eyes.
Wow.
Because I'd seen, again, having an older sibling is clutch. I don't know how people were first siblings or like the first child, because I would just see my sister do creative stuff and then I'd be like, oh, I do that too. Neat. And so, yeah, I like to draw whales a lot as a kid. Had a big whale phase. And then I just would always like draw the shirts for school when they're like, hey, we need a t-shirt for this, oh my God, Fit for Life week, which the shit we had to do as kids, where they're like, hey, go run a mile. And like, here, stretch, and we'll compare you to all of your peers. Like, this is terrible. But I designed the shirt for that week where we're all getting healthy, supposedly. And like in high school, there were just things that they would need designs for, so I would do that. And then I started, for my 16th birthday, I really wanted a video camera. Everyone else was like getting their license and like, I want a car. And I'm like, I don't want to drive. I'm terrified. I just want a camera. So I got a video camera and started doing little funny videos and stuff for the morning announcements.
At school.
And school assembly stuff. I went to an all-girl Catholic high school, which was really fun, even though I quit Catholicism. And then went to college, thought I was going to be an art major. And then they're like, where's your portfolio? And I'm like, what's a portfolio? And they're like, well, it's all your work that you've done in all your art classes. I'm like, oh no, I already do art for fun. I never took an art class. And they're like, well, where's your work? I'm like, I don't have any work. I just can do it. And they're like, that's not how this works.
If only they saw your TikTok today, they'd be weeping. Anyway.
Yeah, so I was trying to get into art school, so I was taking a bunch of art classes, and then I realized that like I didn't have any feelings or perspective enough to come up with art. Because they're like, go draw about something that upsets you, and I'm like, my roommate's crazy. I don't know. She wasn't crazy, but I'm just like, I don't know what to like. I just didn't have enough. I had such a great childhood and had so many privileged things coming up that I just there were so many feelings that people were drawing and painting about. I'm like, I got none of this. So then I was like, oh, I'll do design. And I actually didn't get into our graphic design school because they only accepted like 20 people a year. And I went to Ohio State, which is like the biggest university at that time in the United States. So then I went and did landscape architecture, not fully knowing what it was until I got in, which ended up being amazing because it's design mixed with environmentalism, mixed with like community building type stuff. So I did landscape architecture undergrad, and then I went and worked in landscape architecture and designed playscapes and community rec centers and rooftop gardens for offices and campuses for colleges and so many things. And then I was also doing musicals when I was doing this on the side. And then I hit 30 years old and was like, I always thought I'd be an actor, and I'm not. I think I'm going to quit everything and move to LA and do that now.
Wow. So, okay. That's crazy because that's 30 was the age I came out here too. 31. So when you the landscape design, were you like the head designer on that? Like you would get a client and they say, "Hey, make this look cool," and then you would just visualize whatever needed to go and then bring it to fruition. Is that pretty much? I mean, that's a terrible way.
Yeah. It didn't start that way because, especially like in architecture, it's very well known that you're just going to do like crap work for a while at the beginning. But I got into a really awesome firm. But also as a timing thing because like the recession hit, and so all the jobs that stayed were kind of these like cookie cutter kind of jobs where it wasn't really high end design and luxury design. So a lot of the designers got cut, and the people who stayed, and not that they weren't designers, they're designers as well, but they were even better at team management and like managing projects and like very technical things and just kind of like pumping out these details and getting these projects done. And then when all of a sudden the economy started coming back, which is right around when I got hired in Texas, that's when kind of the more floofy projects come up where they're like, do something crazy and cool. And there weren't a lot of designers who had been able to move up and develop that skill because they'd all been let go during the recession. And so I rolled in and just kind of was like, I'm gonna do my best. And also I moved to a new city and I didn't know a lot of people, and all the friends I did have were Teach for America people, and they don't have free time. So I spent a lot of time like I just became a workaholic then instead. Or I would go to nurseries and learn all the plants in Texas so that I could be better at plants, because I was so worried I wasn't going to know the Texas plants, which was like such a silly anxiety. And then it turned out I ended up knowing the plants. I was one of the most knowledgeable plant people in our office as well, which I didn't realize. I was like, oh, I assumed everyone did this homework. Which
I guess is valuable for what you were doing.
Yeah, it was. Because it's like knowing if you're going to make a picture with a bunch of paint colors, you need to know what colors are available. And if you're going to make a giant a space that you can be in and tell stories with colors and textures, you need to know which plants are available to you. So that was fun for me to learn because I really love like material stuff. Yeah. And then they'd give me a project and I'd go crazy with it. And then they'd be like, huh. And then they'd give me more and more and more. And then eventually I was kind of acting as like the lead designer on a project. And then they pair me up with someone who's just like incredible at constructing things. Like one project, I was like, I want a bridge that's a xylophone. And so they partnered me with someone who was able to figure out like the technicalities of exactly where you need to connect each plank in the bridge xylophone so that it will have the right reverb and come out with the right note and all this stuff, because the technical stuff was not my jam, but the like feelings and the storytelling type stuff was always my jam.
That sounds like an amazing job, actually. Like it sounds like you got to be Andy Warhol pretty much.
It was really fun, but really like architecture is known for overworking, underpaying, and like preying on your passion. And my work
artists, they love to do that. We can just
yeah. My workplace was really lovely. That they worked really hard in trying to not burn their designers out as much as so many of the other firms did. Ours was actually pretty good about that, even though it was still a lot.
Yeah.
But then I moved into the film industry and I was just like, this is easy. Like I can stay up all night and film stuff and not make enough money and be fine. It's fine.
Now it's all starting to come together. Now, like I'm seeing the method behind, or where the foundation was laid. And you were doing musicals at the same time.
Yeah, I hit a point where, because with us, I was hourly until I got promoted, and then it became like, no matter how much overtime you work, you're never going to see money for that. And my boss pulled me aside. Amazing boss, one of my favorite people in the entire world that I've ever met. And I like consider him like an uncle. He just like amazing person. And he like kind of quietly is just like, hey, don't wait until you have kids to leave on time. He's like, you don't have to have kids to be the excuse to go pick them up, to take them to practice, to do something, to leave on time. You're allowed to leave on time even if you don't have kids. And just, he's like, I know it's hard. I know you're worried about people judging you. And he's like, make up a thing if you have a thing. And I'm like, what if I do have a thing? What if I have musicals? And I was like, okay, all right, I'm going to do musicals. And then they have to let me leave on time because I have rehearsal that I have to drive an hour out of town for and get to by 7. So I have to leave by 6. So I really appreciate him kind of, otherwise I just would have lived at that. I mean, I kind of did live at the office, but I would have lived there even more, and I wouldn't have taken the time to go do musicals on the side.
And I'm sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but the musicals probably led you to want to do more acting, I would presume, right? It kind of was a stepping stone to that. Yeah. So you start thinking like, I need to move to Los Angeles.
Yeah, well, I had thought about it. I remember the day. At the time I was in a relationship and we lived together, and I was showering, and he was never happy with his career and always trying to figure out what he wanted to do and become. And I was always trying to put out ideas there for him. But I was like the person, everyone I know is just like, I don't know anyone who loves their job more than you, because I love landscape architecture. I love design. But jokingly, I said something about like, let's just quit everything and go do movies in LA. And I was in the shower and I said it. And then I like heard it come out of myself and was like, oh no, I can't put that back. I can't put that. I remember like peeking out and being like, but what if we did?
Out of the shower, you did?
Yeah, like, oh my gosh. And I'm just like brushing his teeth and like, oh. And we ended up breaking up. So that didn't become a thing. Yeah. But that seed was planted. And so first I bought a ton of writing books because I was just like, writers always have other jobs and they write in their free time. I'll do that. So I bought a bunch of writing books and had some ideas and got like the Save the Cat software to like help eat out some of my ideas. But then after we broke up, I was just in need of a community and new people in my life. Mm. So I auditioned for Evita, and I was poor person number 12. So I was the last person cast, the absolute last person cast in terms of like hierarchy.
Oh.
So like one more person down and I would have been cut. But I'm so glad I got cast and had a great time and ended up doing a bunch more musicals with that group. And yeah, it was fun. And then I was just like, shit, I think I have to act. So then I spent those next 2 years acting on the side, but then every night that I wasn't at rehearsal, I would come home and I would research what it was like to be a PA in LA, because I was like, maybe I can just do my art stuff and be happy with that and do it in film. And then research what it was like to be an actor. And all my research kept pointing me to like, do not act. Terrible idea. Super saturated, especially like if you're a woman in your 30s, it's not going to be kind to you to begin there. Just don't do it. And then when I got here and I got on a set, because I was trying to convince myself to do art department, I just was like, okay, whose job do I want? And it was like the actor and the director. I'm like, yep, that's oh shit, I have to do this now. So here I am doing it. Begrudgingly, but with love.
You love. How many years have you been out here now?
It's like 4.5. Yeah.
4.5. And what? Well, I guess I guess a lot's happened in the past year and a half, so it's kind of like skewed, right? I was gonna say, what's your feelings on LA now compared to when you first moved here? But with an asterisk, of course, because things are kind of coming back, but it's still not back, but kind of maybe. I don't know.
I'm so glad of everywhere to get stuck and stranded. I'm so glad I was here. Because like, winter's terrible.
As a fellow Midwestern, I will second that notion.
No one, I mean, some people need winter, but these people don't make sense to me. I don't need winter. I hate winter. I hate darkness. All of that is already terrible. The pandemic, especially for me being an extrovert and someone who took it very seriously and did it in a very isolated way, that was terrible. So if I don't know mentally where I would have been if I weren't in a sunny place where I could go outside regularly all through that terrible, terrible, terrible winter.
Well, and I'll also say too, I mean, transitioning to some of your projects during the pandemic, especially, I mean, your Tiger King music video I mean, how it doesn't have 20 million views, I have no idea. Maybe we'll someday, but you always are creative. I felt like during the pandemic, you took it up to a different level. And it was funny though. It was actually in the beginning, like to see all the creatives on Instagram, because that's where we all went. It was like, well, what do we do? We're all by ourselves. Oh, we're just going to start throwing content out there. And you were one of those people where I was just like, my jaw would hit the floor. I don't know how many times. I'm like, there's no way she's going to top that. And then boom. There's the time. And then there was the Taco Bell, like the Taco Bell one with the thing, and then the blue dog, and
it was a weird time, like you just at the beginning I was in love with the whole concept of everything shutting down because I was burning myself out. I have a spreadsheet. I still keep it, but I've kind of adjusted how I'm functioning. But basically, I work my day job like 20 to 24 hours a week. And then I would make sure that on top of that, I was always hitting 40 hours a week for my craft, whether that be auditioning, writing, researching, listening to Audrey Helps Actors podcast, or going to class, or just all that stuff. And so it was a minimum of a 60-hour work week for me every week. And I felt like, it definitely got me places fast. And I'm happy with where I'm at and all the work that I put forward. But like, I had no social life. And anytime I took a break, I just had so much anxiety. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not doing something. So when everything shut down, and this is right before pandemic, I would just sit in my car and I would almost literally cry over the fact that Hermione's time turner didn't exist, because I just wanted one so bad. I just wanted to stop time, make everyone go to sleep, let me get shit done, and then wake up and like feel fresh. And then
So
the whole world
you
shut
got
down.
this.
I know, that's what initially I was like, oh my God, I did wish for
The
this.
universe is like,
I did.
okay.
Yeah, I wished for something impossible, and then it happened, and I was like, fuck. But then I took that, I was like, this is great. And I had this incredible to-do list, and it was just like, bam, 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 getting all this stuff done. And then as it became clear that like, oh, we're not coming out of this, and you won't get a hug for who knows how many months. Like, oh, okay, now I'm not okay with this. And so I slowed up for sure for a while, and then comedy just became my coping mechanism. And it was the only thing I had where I was like, I feel like I'm like my industry's paused. I don't want this. How do I keep going? So yeah, it was just making little comedy bits.
Do you feel it took you, even though I know it was uncomfortable and emotionally painful, obviously, but do you think in some way though it took you to a different level in your comedy and skill sets and just your creativity?
I think I had the time to do things I didn't have the time to do before, because so much of me, and like I feel that now I'm falling back into, I'm really focusing on, like I just signed up for a new class and I'm taking other classes and I have all these commercial auditions, which I love. I'm so happy for all this stuff pouring in, but none of that is creation of stuff for people, which is why I haven't been doing as much comedy as I'd like to lately, because I just don't have time, because I'm doing all the like education and audition, all the stuff that no one sees, but is a ton of work. And so I think that without that going on, I didn't have any other option but to make the comedy. So I don't know that it like changed my game face so much as it was just like it changed. I just played a different game because yeah, I don't know how to chill out.
I totally can relate to a lot of what you said in my own way. And congrats on your recent commercial too that I saw.
Oh, thank you.
The nasal strips?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love those things. I loved them even before I was in the commercial.
Oh, really? So wait, you knew about this product before you even got casted in the commercial?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I wore them. So, I mean, like I was sick all through college because I have a shit immune system. And like where normal people get a cold for a week, I get a cold for a month. And so like those breathe right strips, if you haven't tried them, they're amazing. They just, and they open your whole nose up and you're like, ah. No one's paying me to say this right now. I lived through those things in college. I love them.
You weren't acting. You were a true testimonial.
I was.
You're like, man, she's so good. She's selling it so well.
Yeah, at the audition, they're like, wow, you knew how to put it on. I was like, oh, do I?
And one story going back to I know I've talked to you about this in person, but I think it's a great, I call it a case study almost. The blue dog thingy statue
Oh my God.
that you dressed up. So to give some people some reference here and some background, you'd been cranking out these amazing videos, like just crazy videos, awesome, hilarious, tons of work into it. They got great response, obviously. But in terms of what you did next was something so simple. I'll let you take it.
I love and hate the internet. Yeah, I was like not sleeping to put out these super intricate music videos with like hundreds of shots just for a 3-minute music video. And then it'd be like, oh, 1,000 people saw it. And I was like, okay, cool. And then there was the thing going on during the pandemic where it was like recreate a famous work of art. And so I was just like bored one morning. I was like, I've been wanting to do one of these. I think I'll do one of these. So I just put on all my blue clothes and dressed up like the balloon dog art. That's like, it's a giant, it's like, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 feet tall. Dressed up as that, took a picture, put it on the museum hashtag or whatever. And then that blew up. And I'm like, that really? That? And it's going to go in the museum's book that they're making of all the best ones and stuff. And I was just like, but I just did this music video where I didn't sleep for 2 weeks to make it. No one cares. Okay, cool, great.
And I told you this, but yeah, when I saw you post it, I saw everyone freaking out. I'm like, oh well, that's cool. Like it's like a paper mache dog or something JJ did. But then I started scrolling and I go, oh wait, that's JJ actually in it, like wrapped in blue stuff.
It was me. It was me dressed up like a balloon dog.
Was that something based on a museum here in Los Angeles that where that dog statue's at, or is that something?
It's a traveling exhibit, and I had seen it in college because they came to the Wexner Center at Ohio State, and I was in a bunch of art classes then, so I was going to the museum a lot, and I loved it then, yeah, and I was like, well, and I'm like, it's almost Halloween time. Which is my sport. Halloween costumes are my sport.
Ooh.
Because I love having something clever that no one else is going to have. And so with the museum challenge, like 1 million people had done all the things we all know. And I was like, I don't want to do another thing like someone else. I want to do something different. And that's why I remembered the dog and I was like, oh yeah, I haven't seen a single dog yet. I'm going to do that one.
And you're thinking, oh, I'm just doing it for my own creative, artistic expression. No one's going to care. And then people cared.
It's the same with TikTok. Like a lot of the ones that have blown up for me, I'm like, those weren't really my best. Were those that funny? Like, you really thought that was funny? Like, I know I made it, but like that one, and then the ones that are my favorite.
Nothing.
And I'm like sitting there watching it myself. I'm like,
TikTok seems to suit you well, especially because you're into sketch comedy and things of that.
Yeah.
Are you still TikToking a lot?
I've been so bad at it because I just haven't had time, and I have so much jealousy for the people who figured out how to do quick little things where they're like, it's just an impression, and all I do is be myself in front of a door. Because I don't know how to not do elaborate shit. And like, I'm like, oh, I have to do this, but then I'm going to need a green screen. And then I'm going to need 4 wigs. Oh, and then if I'm going to do that, I also am going to have to do this weird shot that I definitely can't get by myself. Like, I just love very intricate, detailed things for my, like, I don't know. That's just how my comedy comes out. And it's hard to make quickly. So yeah, I just haven't had enough time to like sit down. Although the other day, my poor roommates, they like walk out and I'm just like wandering the house dressed as a tampon, looking for my phone so I can shoot me dressed as a tampon.
This was
and
recently.
And they're just like, we never know what you're going to be dressed as. Like I come out in 4 different wigs in a day and they're just like, okay, all right, cool.
I was gonna. Maybe I should. Is this something you're gonna post?
I will soon.
I have questions,
have
but I think I'll wait till
the other half of it. Yeah, it's just you might not understand, but there are certain types of tampons that are just harder to work with, and so that's what it's gonna be about.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think I'll wait till that one comes out, and then we'll just play that from there. I have been at Halloween parties with you before. I think a couple, actually. And what are you going to be for Halloween this year? Are you dressing up?
So, well, I don't want to tell people. I don't want to.
I'll just wait for the gram. I'll just wait.
Yeah, I don't want to reveal that
okay.
just yet. And I'm still trying to decide. So there's something that I'm sure like 50% of all people are going to be. And I want to be something related to that no one else thought of. Huh. And they're all going to be like, what? And then all those people who dress as that thing, that pop culture thing that is very big right now, will then want to like get a picture with me.
I have an idea, but I like the surprise of JJ. Like, you should be an app by yourself. Like, JJ should almost be like an app. I just, what's on JJ today? You just see this random pop art. Yeah, you are pop art. You really are. I've seen pictures of you photoshopped and like what you're like dipped in pizza or something.
Photoshopping was like whenever I was super, super anxious during the pandemic and I just needed to like shut down and feel okay. I would Photoshop myself with food. And that
Very well
has
done.
somehow calmed me down.
You need an art exhibit. That's what. Like one of these days, just rent out something or at an art show or something. Just have the JJ exhibit. I'm telling you, it's gonna happen.
I like the idea of like doing it guerrilla style, like printing like 4 little canvases that I have and putting those command strips on the back or something, and like going to a restaurant, and then when no one's looking, just hanging them up in your booth. Mm-hmm. And then when you leave, you're like, got them.
And I guess, I mean, acting's a whole other thing we could talk. There's some, I want to get to the good stuff. You know what I'm talking about. But acting, what is, I guess with all, I mean, you sing, you do landscaping, you know a lot about plants, you do pop art. So you do so many different artistic things. Where does acting fall on the spectrum for you? Is it just another outlet for you? Is it higher above some of these things, or what is it to you?
Right now, it's the main outlet. Putting a lot of eggs in this basket, a lot of time and a lot of money and resources.
Acting's expensive to pursue.
Yeah. Not no one, but like a lot of people I don't think that's fully processed when it's like anyone can be an actor. And you're like, hey, you have to train, you have to have all of these tools, you have to have like thousands and thousands of dollars. So there are parts of me that was just like, oh, I can't believe I was 30 when I moved here to do this. But like, I also see so many kids that we're in class with, and not kids, but like 18, 19, 20-year-olds who are working 3 jobs to pay for class. Mm-hmm. And then they have to miss class because they have to go to that job even though they paid for it, or they have to drop out, or they can only do like this one class at a time. And it's just such a slower pace to building up that momentum. And so even though sometimes I'm like, oh, why didn't I come out sooner? I'm just like, nah, I think LA might have eaten baby JJ, and having the savings to take the classes I need to take and take the not being like, how am I going to pay for headshots? How am I going to afford class? Like I basically saved up money to go back into student mode. And like, it's not fun being in my 30s and watching all my friends be professionals and I'm like eating ramen and like, hey, I don't want to go have an $8 beer because it's expensive and I can get a whole 6-pack and drink at my house with friends instead. You know, like there's just little things here and there that it's not necessarily fun and comfortable socially to be in student mode, but it's worth it to be able to take the classes I need to take to elevate my skill set. So.
Yeah. And you said that wonderfully. And I was talking to a few other people on this podcast whom you know, and one thing I said, like when I came out here, I didn't understand. It's like maybe I knew somewhat. Okay, you go to acting school and then what? You just start auditioning for shit. Like, but it's like no, you. There's lots of process to this. You know, first of all, you got to train and get good first and foremost. Because if you're not good, it doesn't matter. Doesn't even matter if you do have a connection and get a shot. You're gonna blow it if you're not good. So you got to get good. And then when you get good, you try to get representation. Now you got to get the right headshots. You might get headshots and finally get a manager or agent, and they say, "Okay, go get new headshots." And then you got to keep training. So I think I applaud you for your dedication. Yeah. And now that you say it does make sense. Like I think if I would have came to LA and I was in party mode. I was in complete. Yeah. That's why I went to Vegas. I was in pure party mode. If I would have came out here younger, I just would have wanted to go down to the clubs in Hollywood and all that and party. But yeah, when you come out here with a different mindset, you're kind of out of that phase. It's like, no, this is a job that I want and I need to work if I'm going to get it. If I can even want a chance to get it, you got to work your ass off. So you're one of those people I see. So when I see you booking a commercial, and I love it because I'm like, I've seen your work live. I've seen what you do. I know your work ethic, and I'm very happy to see it paying off for you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So keep going, man.
Yeah. It's a weird industry. It's a super weird industry. Like For example, last week's drama was that wasn't really drama, but just like my family's always just like, you're doing what now? And I was panic looking for costume contacts because I got put on a veil for a job where they're like, you might be a zombie and you might have to wear these contacts. Are you cool with these contacts? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, hey, agent, I don't see a problem with contacts, but also I've never worn them in my entire life. So like, I don't want to be the person who potentially could get on set and then be a giant problem and pain in their butt because I'm having some reaction, or they're like, here, you got to go put these in. And I'm like, YouTube, how to put in, like I didn't know. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to try to find a costume pair. Didn't know this past year that they stopped letting you buy costume pairs. So then I'm like, okay, talking to my little brother, like, hey, can I come get a pair of your contacts to try putting in? And then people being like, is that dangerous? I'm like, well, if I'm only wearing them for like 10, 15 minutes, it's not like it's going to screw up my eye. And then the internet's like, you could scrape your eye if it's the wrong eyeball shape for your and I'm like, okay. So then I go and do an out-of-pocket eye exam, which is a pretty penny, and get fitted for contacts. And then they give me a pair finally that I can take home and play with. And it's like, okay, yeah, it's fine. But it was just it was like so much running around and and those are the things that like no one ever talks about. They're always like, oh, I had this amazing scene, but they're not talking about like all the logistics of the business side of stuff. And like, there's so much more other crap that you spend your time doing that you don't realize you'll be spending your time doing.
That's a very good point. I've never heard someone put it like that. Yeah. So, I mean, you went and did all that just to avoid an issue. Oh, and you did not get the job.
No. I was the second choice, and I was on a veil while they were waiting to get the negative COVID test from their first choice. And then they got it, and then they released me, which is how it goes, which is fine. And for future things, now I know I can wear contacts. But it's just like, you got to be willing to do that stuff sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, talk about going above and beyond, being prepared. But it's, I have to quote, and I don't mean to put a morbid context on what we're talking about acting wise, but I got to quote one of our favorites, Christopher Levy. Shout out to Chris. But I'll never forget one time in class when he said, he was just talking about how like the auditions, it's like 17% of it, your talent. And there's so many other factors that go into it. And he's like, the sad part, I don't know if he said sad. I'm paraphrasing him. I'm not quoting him directly, but basically the concept of it's not a shame that someone can't get good enough. A lot of times people get good enough. Are they ever going to get the opportunity?
Yeah.
And so when I hear you talking what you're talking, that's why it will pay off for you, because when that opportunity comes, you're not letting anything mess it up.
Yeah.
You're like, look, if I got to learn to put in contacts, what do we got to do? Boom, boom, Yeah. So I get it. Like, I get where you're coming from when you say that.
Yeah. I think a lot of actors are so like, but I have the passion, and it's like, but your passion doesn't matter if you don't want to be a small business owner, because that's what you are. And if you're not willing to run that small business until you could pay someone else to do it, then what's the point? Like, it's the part that sucks, but you got to do it. So
very well put. I think that's a very good, well put. And I think it's only appropriate that we transition. And I'm going to start it with something you told me probably close to a year ago. And then it's going to transition into dating, perhaps. You told me once LA is a lonely city. And I never thought of it until you had mentioned that. But then I started to think about what you said. Because at first I'm like, well, I mean, LA's huge. LA's lots of people. There's lots going on. And then I started to think about it. I'm like, wait a minute. Maybe it is kind of a lonely city. Could you expand on that? Could you explain?
Yeah.
Could you retell me what you told me a year ago?
Someone else put this idea in my head, and I had set out to prove it untrue. in all of my, like, because I was just researching and reading every blog, and I wish I could remember which blog it was. I have no idea. But when I was researching before I moved here, there was someone who was just talking about how like dating in LA is really hard. And I'm like, that must just be this person. Yeah. That they must just have a bleak outlook. That can't be true for me. I'm single. I'm confident. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to meet some lovely people. And like, I've been single this whole time I've been here. And it really, I wanted to prove her wrong and I couldn't. And I think it's lonely partially because it's such a car city. You drive everywhere. So depending on where you're driving to and from, that's when you can meet people. But like, you're not just gonna, it's not like New York or Chicago or something where you're just gonna meet people on the street unless you're doing that. So that's like, that very basic concept makes it lonely. And then I think also just like, there's so many people who are just grinding and trying to make it happen, myself included. That's why, like, I didn't have a social life. I didn't have a dating life unless it was someone who somehow snuck in by like someone I was hanging out with a lot, that we were in acting class, you know, and then kind of turns into a fling just by default of closeness. And it's just really hard to meet people when you're so focused on, it's just very competitive. And it's like how athletes don't have time to date. Because it's a very similar grueling experience. And then that's why they just stock those rooms full of condoms at the Olympics at the end, because everyone's just like, ha, you know?
Do they really do that?
Well, they do, except they didn't do it this past year because of COVID. They're like, we don't want to encourage all the touching. So,
but at past Olympics, you're telling me that they put contraceptives in. Wow, I did not know that.
Because they've all been like so focused on this thing, and then it's this final like release. And then that closing ceremony, just everything gets crazy.
Olympics are here in 2028, baby. Get ready.
I thought, oh my gosh, so they were ending. I was like, I can't wait. And then I was like, oh wait, I'm not gonna be this like super young, and I'm not super young, but like I'm gonna be like 8 years older than I am right now. I hope I'm not like
I will be too.
Single and ready to flirt with everyone. I'm like, I hope I'm not still single by then. Oh no. But I was like so excited about this idea of meeting all these people from all over the world. And then I was like, that 8 years from now, I don't know that that's the mindset I'll be in, but I'm still excited for the Olympics.
Well, I tell you what, and I guess I'm saying this on camera, but 8 years from now, if we're both single and we're both out here and we both got nothing else better to do, I'll totally go check out the post-Olympic party.
I'll be like, I love sports with a Z.
Sorry, I got you. I got us off track.
No, you're good. Yeah, and then I think it's just like this city. I feel like people, when you meet someone, like people move in together really quickly in this city. And kind of like get dependent. Yeah, it's so expensive that like couples live together a lot sooner, I think. And it's when you're not in one of those, it's just, I don't know. I have so many young friends who are doing like single friends who are doing fun things, but they're just like in a younger stage than I am. And then a lot of my friends who are my age are busy with family and jobs and their spouses. And so it's like especially lonely when you're single and in a like not party mode.
Wow, yeah, no, this is the level I wanted us to get to. It's hitting me. You're right. Like you are right about that moving in thing. I feel like it's either someone you see sometimes casually or you guys are full-time living together. There's like no in between.
Yeah, I think, and I think part of it is like the cost of living or just like how grueling, like we're in an artistic industry, so we see a lot more of those people. So I feel like there's moving in together it just saves money, but also it's like it's a creative kind of brew, which is nice too that people have that and do that. But when you don't have it, it sucks, man. If you want it. If you want it.
Yeah.
Which I didn't for a long time, but then now I'm like, okay, I would like that now. Where is it? Like, oh shit, I have to put time and effort into it. Fuck.
Oh man, yeah. I've been looking forward to speaking on this in particular. Maybe I got one thing to say before I go on to online dating, because I got, yeah, there's that. Time and effort's exactly it. But and I'm speaking from my own personal place and putting myself on the chopping block when I say this. Like, I realized, and you're right, like, this is a city where people have given up everything to come to, and it's make or break a lot of times. And even though it'd be great to have a romantic partner of some kind and have that in your life, you got to be putting time into what you came here to do. And I know pre-pandemic, especially, you know, working full time, doing Playhouse West, which is another full time. Anyone who went there knows that, which is great. But, you know, you're looking on the other end, like, my appeal to someone that's not into that, that's going to be a turnoff. And I get it. Like, I totally understand that. Like, why, you know, every time they say, hey, do you want to meet up? I'm like, oh, no, I got to rehearse. Or, well, how about Tuesday night? I'm like, oh, yeah, no, we got to rehearse again. You know?
Or the times where you don't have to rehearse and you do have an open night, but then you get an audition and you have to cancel. And that's like, people say that actors are flaky, but we're not. We don't control our schedules. Like, we don't know when something's going to pop up. And also, when you're using your emotions to do your job, you don't know how much it's going to take out of you. And so, like, I don't think there's anything wrong. I hate when people flake, but I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, like, I really don't know if I can commit to this until, like, day of.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm kind of at because of that.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And I, excuse me, recently rejoined the online dating community for a brief moment of time. And I went all in. Like, I said, you know, because at first I got back on, like, oh, this is stupid. But I'm like, you know what? No. Create great profiles. I went on the 3 major ones: Hinge, Tinder, Bumble. I paid for premium accounts on all 3. Unlike, I don't know how it is for women, but guys, you know,
I haven't done it, but I've heard, like, a lot of the guys I know do.
It's definitely worth doing if you really want to take it seriously. And I met some cool people and it was cool interactions, but I think you had told me it is exhausting. Like, my brain felt like I had taken 3 SATs and read a whole bunch of, and it was just like, I just got tired. And you just get tired of just constantly the same conversations over and over and over again. And I just got to the point and I got off because I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, what am I chasing here? And I took a casual approach to it, but I think it's one of those things, like, you either got to be on them or you're not, because you really have to be putting in effort if you really want to build something with someone to take it offline on there. So I guess I'm just opening up the conversation to online dating in general.
I think the best analogy that I have for it is, when COVID got really, really bad, my household said, we're not doing grocery stores at this point because it's just not worth it. So we're going to do the order it and then go and pick it up and then put it in your trunk thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I know some people can just make a list of the things that they need. I don't function that way. I need to, like, see things. That's why I like to actually go grocery shopping, because I like to get different things, or like to kind of see stuff like, oh, maybe I want that, maybe I want that. And so making my grocery list the first time, both of my roommates were, like, done in an hour because we were all going to order it together. So only one person had to go. And it took me 3 days. I was just like, guys, order without me. Like, it was one of the most anxiety-ridden activities for me, because usually you walk through an aisle, you see thousands of products, you pick out the, like, 3 you need. You can just scan, pick. To have to go through that aisle one item by one item at a time and figure out which ones I needed, it was so inefficient compared to normal shopping. And that's the same with dating. You go into a bar, you're like, wow, I see 3 people here that do it for my pretty bits, you know? And I'm going to go talk to those 3 and see if their personalities don't suck. and you talk to them, you kind of figure out which one. With the dating app, you're going through one at a time. And that's, I think, partially why it's so exhausting. And then the other reason is because like people aren't that original. And I can only talk about the like 10 introductory things with someone so many times. Like, what do you do? Where are you from? How long have you been here? How's your day? Like, don't fucking ask me how my day is. Like, we have a better question, you know?
I'm laughing because I've heard it all and done it all. That's what...
Yeah. So I just have copy paste responses, or like, honestly, I'll just have a couple back and forth and I'm like, let's just do a quick Zoom chat. Like, I can tell in 5 minutes if I'm interested in you and meeting up with you or not. I don't need to sit here and pen pal with you and send you my saved auto responses to all this boring shit. And it's not that it's boring, like where you're from matters, but I just need to figure out if I'm even interested. And having that same conversation in a text form where all the texts look the same, you're not really a person to me yet. I mix them all up, and then people are like, oh, I already told you where I'm from. And it's just like, let's talk about expectations, sir. You know? And it's not even that I'm having the same conversation over and over. I'm having it in the same place because I couldn't leave my room for a year. You know, like there's no way to differentiate unless there is a face and a conversation with a different person. And even then, it was still like, I've been to Laurel Canyon for a hike date with so many different people. And I'm just like, I need to stop going there because it's all blending together.
LA does have its premier date spots, or the go-tos, right?
Yeah, I love that one because I ask all the questions on the way up. And that's because I'm out of shape and I can't talk and go up the hill at the same time. So I get them talking. And then by the time we get up there, then they can start asking me questions because they're tired. And I can talk on the way downhill. It's totally fine.
So you had it down to a science.
Yeah.
And then they get to their car and they're like, well, yeah, no, it was great talking to you. And in the back of your mind's like, I'm never going to see you again, am I?
Oh, not the back of my mind. I'm very upfront at the end of every day.
Oh, tell me about that.
I'll just say, hey, you're really lovely, but I don't feel a romantic connection. So I don't want to waste your time because I respect time. That's really important to me. And this was still lovely. And everyone seems to be like, well, not everyone. There's a few people. But mostly everyone seems to be like, oh, my God, thank you. That's so refreshing.
I love that. I love that because I can't tell you how many times I had been on one. And then at the end, there's kind of like, well, like, you know, have you seen Dumb and Dumber?
Yes, but it's been a minute.
Okay, well, you know, when Jim Carrey's outside, he's like, big gulps, huh? Well, see you later. Like, it was like kind of like this awkward thing. Like, all right, we'll get home safe. You know, it's just like, do I text them again? Do they text me? But like, that's like no bullshit. It's like, hey, it's like the show Blind Date. If you ever watched that back in the day, where after the date, the camera crews would ask each person, I would totally see Becky again. She was pretty hot. And then Becky would be like, I would never talk to Greg again in my life. You know?
Well, and I'm at a point where like I used to maybe care too much because I was like, well, like if I didn't like them, I was like, oh, it's going to hurt their feelings so much. It's like, no, slowly ghosting them is way more disrespectful versus like respectfully telling them no, thank you. 100%. And I think more men need to get used to hearing that and get comfortable hearing that. And so if I can give them practice, great. And then if I'm on the other end, I'd be like, well, maybe they don't like me. So maybe because if I am interested, I'd be like, okay, so do you want to hang out again? Like, let's answer this now. Let's plan something instead of like, I don't know, I'll text you. No. If you're interested, you know. And I think because I have enough casual shit going on and I don't really care for it, but like there's enough outlets in that realm. If I wanted it, I could have it. That if someone's going to be scared off by me saying, when would you like to hang out next? I'm like, I don't need you. So there's really nothing to lose in being honest either way.
I like that. Be gone. I'm done with you. I don't need you. I had someone tell me, and this girl actually respectively told me how she viewed us as friends, and coincidentally, it was like one of the few women I felt I really did want to truly see again out here in LA. It was the one that didn't see me the same way, which is fine. She was a brilliant person, and I
It
totally
always goes that way.
yeah. But you know, at least, but she told me something, and I'm probably gonna butcher this. I'll never forget what she said. She told me that online dating has ruined dating, and ironically, we were on an online date. But she said that it takes away something about like the elemental nature part of like a man and a woman. Like she said, it takes away the chase, is what she told me.
I've had similar feelings.
Yeah, like it's too mechanical. Like it's too like you match with this person. Like, okay, we're gonna meet up our romantic connection here at 10 o'clock, and you're just kind of forced into it, hoping that something's going to happen, as opposed to I'm out in the quote unquote wild. I see you at anywhere, grocery store, park, anywhere, and I go, hey, she looks kind of, as you would say, she does something for my pretty bits, possibly. And I love that, by the way. And you know, hey, how you doing? I'm Sam. What's your name? And then it starts. Then it's like a complete. You see where I'm coming from with that? Like,
yeah. Well, I love the fun of like when you're in an environment and there's like a little something between you and someone else, and you're like, are they interested?
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's just keep doing the thing that we're doing, the shared activity. And you're like, am I interested? And you're like, maybe if they were. And then you're like, and there's like that fun tension of like not knowing.
Yes.
And then it's like the whole first season of The Office, and then that tension is broken, you know, and like you don't get to even build the tension up to have it be broken. So it is missing like some fun stuff that I like. I don't think it's ruined dating. I think it's just changing it, because I think there were so many people who didn't even get to have those moments because they weren't. And like me, when I was in landscape architecture, I was seeing the exact same people at work all the time. I was never going to meet someone new at work that I could date. And also like dating at work, it's his own thing, you know? So it's like, there was no place for me to meet people if I wasn't doing some activity. And like all my hobbies until I started doing acting, like I like to sew. That's alone at home. You know, I'm not meeting anyone sewing in my house. So I think it's a great tool, but much like everything, there's a sacrifice. And you do get some stuff, like, you know, their politics and their religion, and if they want kids, you know, all that up front. So if you see that that's really important to you and someone doesn't have one of those things, you don't even have to waste your time.
That's true.
So it's like there's trade-offs. I don't think one is good or bad. They're just different, and you get to choose what sacrifices you're willing to make to use one of those tools or to not use it.
That's a good point. And one thing I'll say, because I agree with you, I mean, because there are certain things that are deal breakers for people, right? I mean, obviously, if you guys, a real serious subject, have opposite views on, that's probably going to be a problem. So I get that part, but I do find with online dating, it does cause you to like hone in a little too much. Like when I went to my settings, because I got Bumble Premiere.
So you get to set all the settings.
Oh, dude, I did travel mode. I did it all. Like Sam Dever did a tour. I was in Vegas. I was in Ventura, Santa Barbara, Orange County. Just my little about thing profile went all over the place. And I feel you can hone in a little too much. And what I mean by this is, like, say, for example, little things like, I don't know, someone's into football and I like soccer. This may be a stupid example, but you look at that on the surface, you're like, oh, well, they don't like soccer, so this is never going to work. You know, F it. But it's like, I feel like some of these people, if you were to meet them in person, our little differences wouldn't matter as much, because I'm feeling your energy. I'm feeling the chemistry, because we may have differences, but our chemistry could be amazing.
Yeah.
You know?
I won't cut someone out solely based on their hobbies.
Right.
Because my experience has told me that like those are probably going to be different than mine. But like, yeah, I think it's up to, if someone's cutting someone out because of a sport difference, then like you reap what you sow. But like, I just don't value sports differences enough to cut someone out because of that. but like religion is very important, or lack thereof is very important to me. Like there was one person we matched and we were having a good chat, and then he brought up being part of a certain religion. And I was like, that's super cool for you, but we shouldn't date. And he was like, why? This is going great. And I was like, oh, yeah. And like, I have friends of many different religions, but if I am dating you and there's potential to maybe have a family with you, I will spend every waking moment trying to explain to you why your religion is damaging to me as a woman and why it disappoints me. And I will try to change you. I will try to make you a godless person. And that's not fair to either of us, because it's not my job to change you. And it's not respectful to try to change that. So I will not date you. And he's
Let's
like, but maybe I was
right here.
yeah, he's like, maybe I was changing my mind already. I'm like, that's your own journey to go figure out on your own.
Well, it's funny because I had a girl one time tell me she was younger, and this was years ago, but she's like, oh, what do you like to do? And I told her, I'm like, what do you like to do? She's like, oh yeah, I like to go to the bars in West Hollywood and blah, blah, blah. And I don't like that at all because I got that all out of my system in Vegas. But, I ended up saying like, well, I'm down to go out once in a while. And I'll never forget. I'm so glad she said what she said to me. She's like, dude, you can just say you don't like doing that. And I'm like, dude, it's so right. It's like, you shouldn't change yourself for someone. So I respect like on both ends, like, hey man, like I recognize that this is going to be an issue and you shouldn't try to change yourself to appease me. That's getting us off on the wrong foot regardless.
And that's something that's too big. Like me not loving sports, I feel like it's just like the karma I feel like I'm going to have this karma coming around that I'm going to like fall in love with someone who loves sports, and it's going to be a pain in the ass. But like there will be part of me, because I'm excited and I love them, that I'll be like, yeah, I'll get the jersey and watch with you, like yeah, I'll totally do it. And so like I don't want to like blow up something that could be amazing just because of hobbies. But religion is like that's a big one.
It's a big one. It's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially if you want a family with someone someday.
Yeah.
One last thing on this topic. I know oh wow, yeah, we've been going about an hour here. One thing from a woman's perspective, could you please tell us, men, is there anything that we're doing wrong, whether it's on an app or in the dating world in general, that we need to correct based upon your experience?
So wrong isn't the correct word.
Okay.
I've been told I have a very specific taste, and it is not in line with most women in LA. I hear this fairly regularly from people. So like the things that drive me insane aren't necessarily things that'll drive other people insane. But also, like, why is everyone using the 2 truths and a lie prompt? That doesn't tell me anything about you except for that you can make lies up and you can brag. Like, it's not showing something worth showing. But at the same time, I'm so glad every time someone finds that they value that, and they think telling you who they know, or like when they put a picture of them with like, when every other picture is them with another famous person, I'm like, it's like, I'm so glad this person was themselves, so that I know that I don't need to waste another second on them. Like there are so many things I could tell people to be more appealing, but then they're not being themselves. So it's like, no, you should just straight up be yourself, so I don't waste my time on you if you suck, in my opinion, because I'm terrible. But yeah, I think it's just, there's so many people on there without confidence. And the number one thing I can say is like, hey guys, go get some fucking therapy, please. Like, we all deserve it. You boys deserve it. We women deserve it. Find a place with a sliding scale and get some therapy.
And on that note,
yeah.
Well, JJ, this has been a lovely, that hour went by like that. Like, it was very fast. Thank you so much for doing this. If you got like a couple minutes, we both did read the Overstory. It's going to be the book of the episode.
Woo-hoo.
Based upon that. What did you think of it now that we can talk about it, since we've both finished it?
So like I think you might have said this, like some of the most vivid writing you've ever Yeah, I super agree. Like they'd use a sentence and they'd use words that don't usually evoke smell, but somehow they'd evoke smell, or they'd use like sight words to evoke taste or something, like just some really incredible, vivid and intricate writing. Also, it was a book that made me feel like maybe I was too dumb to understand some of it, because I was just like, this is dense. This is very dense. And it was good, but I felt stupid reading it. And I'm like, I'm not a stupid person. And I quite like trees and this topic and a lot of things about the environment and yada, yada, yada. But it was just it was written up here. So it was good, but it took me forever to get through.
Yeah, no, it definitely, piggybacking off of that too. The character development really did it for me, aside from the vividness of it all, because like you're reading about all these random characters. Spoiler alerts. You're reading about all these random characters. I'm like, where is this going?
Yeah,
but
it's Love Actually style.
What style?
Love Actually style.
What's Love Actually?
Like Pulp Fiction style.
Oh yeah, exactly. Great. That is a great analogy. I'm going to put that. Yes, it is like a book, like the Pulp Fiction movie. Like you're like, what the hell is this? And then all of a sudden, like, oh, this person meets this person, and then they finally meet, and then at the end, whoa, it all tied in together. So I'm glad you went on that ride.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. I'm glad I did too. And there was just like, having done landscape architecture, they mentioned so many trees that it was just like, my little plant nerd self was getting very happy about that.
And I might have to inquire about your plant services in the future, because I was thinking of getting some plants eventually.
Nice.
They got the little mini pumpkins at Trader Joe's right now, so I may consider adding a couple of those first. But JJ, it's been a pleasure. It's so great to talk to you. You're just great energy. Where can the people find you and follow you and check out all your cool stuff?
My Instagram and TikTok, and guys, I have a Twitter, but I only got that handle just so someone else wouldn't get it. I don't do shit on there.
Well played.
But apparently, like, if you do comedy and writing, you should be on there, and I'm not. I'm like, ugh. But it is at JJ_Obee. I should, yeah. At JJ_Obee, and that's O, B as in boy, E as in egg, E as in egg.
Okay, awesome. And you got a website too.
JJObee.com has all the shit.
JJ Obee, this has been amazing. I'm glad this finally happened.
Thank you. I am too.
Yeah, definitely. I foresee future segments and things, and I think you should have your own show of some kind, whether it's on dating or anything. Because you really grateful to have met you. You're inspiring, and I can't wait to see where all your artistic endeavors take you next.